We're going to go through some items, and hopefully through the items, the Ilam will come up with the halacha l'maisa as just one dot of hakdama when it comes to electrical appliances. The Ilam knows the basic grade, but just to give, we'll start with 3 minutes on electrical appliances, and then we'll go into items. So the basic question is, an electric appliance, just talk about an urn, a simple urn. Madinai. So when you finish learning Shulchan Aruch, what do you come out with?
First you have to ask, does it break if you take it?
When you finish learning Shulchan Aruch, what do you come out with? The Shulchan Aruch says if it breaks, then it's pater? No. Shulchan Aruch says if it breaks, come pater? No. You have a diuk from the Hilig Talmud of Shmuel, but the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say it. Beautiful. So what you would have said, which is what everyone says the first time they learn Tevilas Keilim.
Was there electricity in times of Shulchan?
No.
Right.
No, but again, so we have a Mar Makam. The Mar Makam is the Rav Kiva Eger, is the Pischei Tshuva that discussed these Yaris Gedolos. And these Yaris Gedolos had a big problem. They couldn't get them into the mikvah. Sounds just like our problem. I can't get my urn into the mikvah. Sounds very similar. So you learn the Shulchan Aruch. And what is the Chachmas Adam, Rav Kiva Eger, what do they say to do? They discuss maybe there's a heter, the fact that it's mechuber lekarka, and they say there's no heter because it's mechuber lekarka. So what do they say? Do they say, oh, you're pater? No, they don't say you're pater. They say break it and rebuild it. That is what the Chachmas Adam says over here, Pischei Tshuva Sivkat and Aleph, nearly Disrich and Tvila, even though they're kavun lekarka, why it has a status of a kli. Rav Kiva Eger in Sivkat and Gimel says similarly. He quotes and he says, "Matzasi the Keilim Gedolim Matecha Shem Mayayin Srichin Tvila." You can't do it. Okay, so you have to break it. So this is where one would think, and then you open up the Tshuva of Ramosha and Aleph Nun Zayin, and Ramosha says that an urn needs Tvila. Ramosha's urn plugged in. Definitely had electricity because man Ramosha. And he says you need Tvila. Ramosha has a massive chiddush that even though we know the halacha that everything has to be tayveld b'ofen ha'ishtamshus, Ramosha has a chiddush, and it's also in Chiluk Gimel Simon Chav Daled. Ramosha says ein sarich litvol kuloi. You don't have to tayvel the whole thing. He has a chiddush that has a kli on top with the heating element on the bottom. You could flip it upside down and tayvel just the pot. That is the chiddush of Ramosha Feinstein. If you have the urn, you have an urn with the spout, and the bottom is the heating element. So says Ramosha, you have a heating element and you have a pot on top. It's two separate kelim. So what do? He says, Ein sarich litvol kuloi. Ein sarich litvol kuloi. T'loi nivatel ha'elyon l'tachtoin. Says Ramosha, I understand what you said, just 1 second. Says Ramosha, the top is now bottled to the bottom to consider the top is all one keli, and rather they're two kelim michubarim, and therefore you're allowed to be meikol and just toivel the top. That is what Ramosha says. Now, what exactly were the particulars of the case? Meaning, was it discussing that by just putting the top in, water even goes through the spout? You have the same kasha, right? Water goes through the spout without opening and closing the spout? No. Same kasha. I don't know the answer to that question. That's going to be a question that is homework for the Ilam. I don't know the answer. Same question is by the pumping urns. What Shkaya put in? What? No, but I'm asking a different point. There, Shkaya you put in the mikvah. Let's say you do, but the water doesn't go through because the only way it's a pump. The water has to suck in and go out. I don't fully know the answer to the question. By the pump urn, it could have something to do with the fact that all those internal compartments are not metal. So it could be that might be better. The oifen ha'ishtamshus, we know everything has to be tayveld. I don't really understand. What? Okay. I mean, I've yet to find a person that plugged in the... Oh, so we'll go to the next case. You go to your kurig. So we're going to see in a moment how many places you're going to say you have to tayvel it. It's a kli, but shkayach, putting in the mikvah doesn't do anything. The water doesn't actually go through. So now you have to plug... On the kurig, no. So there's one part of metal that touches, the pin. Which, by the way, is not just a pin. It's not just a pin, by the way. If you look carefully,
It also shoots water through it.
water goes through that pin.
Yeah.
You're mine. Very nice. Very important. People think it's two different things. It's not true. It's actually a tube. It's a metal tube, which is a shikol problem because it's a kli. Some want to say that no, it's just a pin. It's not just a pin. It's an actual tube. Okay, let's get to it. So let's just try to go in order. So number one, I said we're going to do this for 3 minutes, 35.5 minutes in. Number one is you would think it needs tefillah. Ramesha says that. Comes along the Chelkes Yaakov. The Chelkes Yaakov is one of the Gedolim in, I think, my brain's saying England, but I think it's Europe. His name is Rabreish. And he says, he says, the kivan di efsher lishtamish b'matechas alozeh rak al yedei chiber lechashmal. You can only use this if it's plugged in. Shabakaisel have kinase lishamish im hakarka deloy mikabel tuma umemila ein tzarich gam kein tvila. Says the Chelkes Yaakov that there is no chiyuv tvila. Why? It's mechaber lekarka. So the kasha that everyone here is wondering is the Chachmas Adam said mechaber lekarka is not enough. Correct? We all read the Chachmas Adam, the first Pesach Tshuva, and he said afal b'shekavinus on mechaber lekarka does not help. So we'll get to this in a moment. Lamaisa, the Be'er Moshe, the Debesina Rav, comes along and he says, they told me that there was a Rav, a Paisik, that says all these electric things are be'tuvim be'tfila, lefish mechubarim lakaisal aydei chot, v'dinam kikliya mechubarim lakarka sheb'tuvim atila. Says the Be'er Moshe, Eineni ma'amin shadvarim ke'ilu yatsa mipi Rav Bal Das. I don't believe someone with intelligence said this. Vushtos meikara ve'ein shum tzarich lahashav alav. I don't even have to answer. The Shevet HaLevi also had some choice words and says the Shevet HaLevi l'niyas daiti zehevel uraos ruach. This is just absolutely nothing. We already quoted Ramesha. We quote the Chotshani comes along and he says the fact that it needs electricity, still Lamaisa, his lashon is koshe lahagdiroi shetashmisha idei karka. It's difficult to say this is an that's used in the karka lepatim and Tevilas Keilim, because those paiskim that discuss being mechaber lekarka, so the Chotshani already opens that door, which we know in our vernacular that's the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan also did allow mechaber lekarka to work. Hainu bekelim shetzuras hashimush bahem al yedei hahischabrus lekarka. So the Chotshani wasn't bothered by being mechaber lekarka, being the betur. He was bothered that the plug-in makes that mechaber lekarka. It's difficult to say. That's called tashmishai al yedei karka. Rebelski, the Moshe Sternbach writes the Varehem Timuhin. He doesn't believe that this is possible. He says any person, a hedyet is machnas umaitzi, could just plug it. It's no way that that's going to work. Now, Rav Elyashiv, things got a little bit crazy in, and I don't say that lightly, in the world of Mishpachas Elyashiv, because it seems that Rav Elyashiv at some level was Mekabel Svara. Some level he was Mekabel Svara. And yeah, it's like in the world of Rav Elyashiv Svarim, also you know anything about Rav Elyashiv, it's hard to understand sometimes what happened. Could we digress to tell a fascinating story? We could digress. So Dayan Dunner's son, Talmei Yantif, Dayan Dunner from England, one of the Lamaisi is one of the Gedolim nowadays, told me a fascinating story that his father was at a Pinyon Haben, and he was bothered that they were doing the Pinyon Haben because he happened to have known that the woman had a child prior. So he went over to the Rav who was officiating, and he said, "What are you doing?" And the Rav said, "I asked Rav Elyashiv." I asked Rav Elyashiv. Rav Elyashiv said I could. Okay, said. So Dayan Dunner, next time he was in Eretz Yisrael, he went to Mishpachas Elyashiv. He went to Goyin Gadol, and he asked Elyashiv, "You had a story? Oh, you remember?" And Rav Yashiv said, let me tell you what he asked me. He asked me, if one did a pidyon haben in such a scenario, was the bracha a vadai bracha levatala? And Rav Yashiv told Dayan Donner, and I responded, vadai bracha levatala is doch nisht. It's not for sure a bracha levatala. And then that Rav took the story and went lechatchila, allowing them to make the bracha. Okay, more famous is the twist-eye story, right? Everyone knows that one. Twisted once, twisted twice, twisted three times, and those are the three Talmidim. They got three answers from Eliyahu, whether it was mutter, asa derabanan, or asa deraisa. So the point is, when it's not written, it's very difficult to take the words. And that's why we know we value the Igros Moshe for the written text. So Lamaisa, in the world of Rav Eliyahu, they do have at certain points, Rav Eliyahu was Mekel. Rav was Mekel. And it seems, B'Sayf Chayav, we've already mentioned, I believe, one time, there was some Zalman was nifter with a crackpot next to his bed. It seems Rav Eliyahu was nifter, handling the electricity shayla, and the latest Talmidim say that Rav Eliyahu L'maisa held, if it's plugged in, it's part of Tefillah. But whether that's something that one could be relied upon, not much more I could say. So that's one svara, which not the greatest svara. We're seeing a lot of the Gedolim are very upset about it.
Why is it talking not the greater? Why is it not?
Oh, good. So let's go within the svara itself. Very good. That's what I wanted to do. So within the svara, there's two parts of the svara. Part A, that is mechuber l'karka. Part B, does this make it mechuber l'karka? And part C, how do we answer if the chachmas adam that says mechuber l'karka doesn't work? So let's start with part C. Part C, I don't know if I saw this elsewhere. I just think, it's a simple chilik. So if it's a simple chilik, let's just make the chilik, and then we can move on. Chachmas adam is talking about a kli that was fashioned, and then was attached to the ground. Says the chachmas adam that it doesn't work. Why? He says because it doesn't lose its shame kli. Talush with the saif chibrai doesn't lose its shame kli. So that's only a kli that was talush. Every electric appliance, one could say, doesn't get the shame kli. Why not? Because it only works very good with electricity. So that's why that doesn't work. Fine. But now what about the etzem electricity? Does the etzem electricity work? So now we have to know, does mechuber l'karka work? So the Aruch HaShulchan, which you all saw, gave, I think it was 3 svaras to patter up these large items. He said that they don't move. What was his lumdus? He said that it's not kli su'uda. Doesn't make it a kli su'uda. Why is it not kli su'uda? Because it doesn't move, brought to the table, and it's kavua bekarka. So it sounds like at some level of mechuber l'karka, we would be maskim. Question is, what is the level? And as Ramesh Sternbach l'chayr very misvara tainud, a plug that you just plug in and out to say that's mechuber l'karka, it's just a little bit difficult. What's creating the chibur l'karka? I understand in the world of science. Let me ask you a question: where the wireless charging is the latest rage. So if I make a plug that works wirelessly, I don't actually have to plug it in. It's mechuber l'karka. What happens when they make that the sound I think they're working on this, right? That the electricity is pumped through the air. What? Through the lights. And then it'll charge your items. So everything will be charged automatically. So you're going to say that so now I'm going to have a coffee machine. I'm not going to actually have to plug it in because it's getting power, but it's mechuber l'karka. So maybe one would say, yeah, why? Because it's getting its functionality, I'm not sure if that's a word, from the karka, from the electricity. Who cares how it's plugged in? But you all can understand that in the world, we're handling tumah v'tayri here. We're handling chibur l'karka, and good.
I know so you can't be able to.
Yeah.
Also, like doesn't the Gemara and by animals they call
Yeah.
it something a carcass.
It's also mechuber l'karka. So maybe in a chanami. Good, it's true, and that's why ulay avsher. But we see that all kemat kol gedolei hapaiskim are teaching us that they're not so happy with the svara. So let's go the next step. If you were to have a coffee machine, can you get the Aruch HaShulchan? Meaning our coffee machines, you don't have the Aruch HaShulchan. We're going to end with everyone here already knows how Rav Shmuel answered the Shaila, and Rav Shmuel Arbach was apparently maskim that his father would be maskim based on the heter of Sif Yud Aleph. Rav Henkin Lamaisa writes that heter. So we'll get that, not Rav Henkin, Rav Heinemann, Baltimore. We'll get there in a moment. But before that, is there another heter? So a regular coffee machine, the answer is no. There are metal components. Let's just set the math straight. Again, every other item, I know I'm jumping here because you all know what's going on. Your good old-fashioned George Foreman, now it's called the Betty Cracker. Another person will come out with one, will have a new name. Yes, some of them don't need tefillah. They have hachsherim, yes. Check your local barcode. But those items don't break. So why not? Like Ramesha said, just dump it in the mikvah. Till Keurig designed their coffee machine, if you ask any Rav that's passing for more than 10 years, he'll tell you, till 10 years ago, yeah, a coffee machine, you need to tevel it. Why? Because you could. Who cares? There's metal components, you dump it in the mikvah, you let it dry out for 5 minutes and move on. And there were electric appliances, your urn and your George Foreman. They still make George Foremans? Yeah? Yeah? Of course. I don't know. Maybe George died. I don't know. So, Betty Crackers, all those items, very simple appliances, zhuzhers, they probably have immersion blenders, and mixers, with the guys. All these items, the mixer. No, not that you wanted to go for a bash. We'll get to a hand mixer, thank you. My brain's thinking like the crank one. I've never seen one of those. But anyways, all those items, there's never a shayla. They have metal, and you type them. Elamai going to tell you, maybe you'll want to know, can you make a bracha? You chayshish for this chalkitz yaakov for a bracha? Okay. But that's that now. Problem is it came out with the Keurig and all the coffee machines that have, what's wrong?
Most of the time you just included the machine with the...
No, I didn't. We're going to have to get there. I don't want anyone to go home and take the whole bash and throw the whole bottom in. That's not a smart idea. I just said that until 10 years ago, every item was able to be titled. There were certain items like the mixers, the kitchen aids, as they used to call them, that I think they still do, that the bowl came out, and we just split them in half, and it was very simple. Then designed all the newer Keilim, that electricity is all one, and they break. Why do they break? Because there's a computer chip inside. At least that's what they say, that they break. No, I'm not sure. We'll get to that in a moment. So, what's the story? What is the story? So if it's a regular machine that plugs in and plugs out, just to say electricity, l'chayra, is not pashit. But they have industrial machines. They have the water coolers and machines like that. Those are connected to water lines. That, l'chayra, you have the Aruch HaShulchan. Aruch HaShulchan said it's a kli gadol. That's mamish b'chober l'karka. It doesn't come to the table. It's not kli suda. You have the Aruch HaShulchan and that's why on those items, many, many more paiskim are willing to be makel for the simple reason that they're mamish b'chober l'karka. So we're not, and it's not the electricity that's making them b'chober l'karka. It's the item itself. It's the item itself. All the industrial machines, etc. I'm just looking at you from our makam or two. Yeah, the chachani. No, the Chachani Gemaisa, we saw today, Chachani's, I don't know if the saw, the Chachani's machna like the Taz. Can I give the Shach in the Barzalim? He says there's a goin, and he wants you to toivel even the Barzalim. He doesn't hold that whole sligya, which is going to be in a moment when we get to the items, and we're going to go through everything, and we're going to start saying, it's auxiliary, and it doesn't touch the food. Chachani doesn't care. Chachani says that the knife they use to cut down the wheat has to be toiveled. I wonder what goes on in Bnei Brak. L'chayr they do. But, the with the Rebbe's knife anyways, it makes the picture better. First you go to the mikveh with it, and then, you cut the wheat. He says, the wheat is not, he says, it doesn't even touch the part of the food that you eat. Because you cut it, he's talking about gvaniyot, talking about tomatoes. You cut it from the stem, no one eats the tomato stem. You eat the tomato stem? No. There's no nutrients in there. Yeah. Even the crazies. Even the avocado pit chavra, they don't eat tomato stem. You're not holding. Avocado pit, most nutrients in the whole avocado. Not with a zhuzher, you're going to break it. Blender. Fancy blender. Only fancy blenders. If you have a cheap blender, do not try it at home. If you have the fancy blender, try it to see if your fancy blender works. What's a fancy blender? Dailim Karakter on the car ride home. We're not getting, we're not getting involved. Good. Okay, let's continue. So that's svara. So now what are we left with? We're left with all household coffee machines that aren't attached to water, aren't attached to real electric motors. There's another heter that if the plug that it needs a heavier wattage plug. Like in Hilchas Shabbos, we have such a svara. The Chazon Ish says, if the Chazon Ish says it, if it's based on the Chazon Ish, that let's say a fridge plug, is that even true? Do fridge plugs need different plugs nowadays? It's not even true anymore, right? Even ovens don't. Yeah. Also don't. Yeah. Regular plug, right? Yeah, regular plug. Okay. It used to be that the fridges and the air conditioners had this big plug, and there in the world of Machlekes Chazon Ish Rosh Zalman, whether electricity is deraisa derabanan and Shabbos is totally whether it's mechuber lekarka. It could be many more will be maskim on a big plug. In the world of Hilchos Shabbos is very negeya because why is it very negeya? If you need to get a guy to do something, whether more people will handle it to deraisa, so they want to bring a raya from there to Tevilas Keilim, then maybe if you have an item with a big plug, that's a real chibur lekarka, and you can understand the svara is that you can't just plug it in anywhere. You need to have the designated plug to plug it into. It's worse. It's more of a svara of a deraisa. Therefore, it will be more difficult to get a guy out more mechuber lekarka. But for Tevilas Keilim, right? When you want to give the shiur, how showing if you want to give a shiur showing how not every halacha is connected, it's a nice thing to do. So this is one of the examples. On Shabbos, it's a big shayla. Electricity. It's pashtus boina. It's an isur boina. Isur boina. Even the feeder shloim zalman that holds electricity is a derabanan. On the big plugs, it could be he'll be masking that's an isur boina because the plug stays plugged in forever. So on Hilchas Shabbos, it's going to be a chumrah, but at Tevilas Keilim, it comes out a kula. Now, what about a regular, small household Keurig machine, etc.? So Lamaisa, Belsky, we don't know what exactly he held, meaning we know what he held, we don't know why he held it. There's an OU document that he writes that it might be called a plastic kli. And I'll be honest, I'm reading you something that for many years bothered me, and I finally understand it, because I believe he was coming from all the other svaras that we're about to say. And by the way, actually, can I read this to everyone? It was taking a long time, I'm sorry. Should I just stop and go to items? Okay. No. Okay. They asked Belsky, and he said to your svara, he said, number one, it's a digital component, it can't get wet. Number two, if you try to tabulate, the inner chamber does not fill with water. Water only enters if it's pump 3. So tefillah is not an option. That's how they asked Belsky the shayla. Again, this is, they come out with the monthly OU papers in all the shuls, Daf HaKashus. That's what I'm reading here. So this isn't like shaylas and shuvas. But either way, Belsky responded, we could view the Keurig as a plastically, which is potter. This is because, again, I don't know if he wrote this, the entire visible machine is plastic. The metal receptacle and element which are in the recesses of the machine are not accessible. Although there are 2 pins that pierce and inject hot water into the K-cup, it is not clear that these pins require tefillah. It is possible they are like a can opener. If one wishes to remove the pins and title them, with some cajoling, they can be removed, at least in some models. If you sell a portion to a non-Jew, it alleviates the problem. And then he says how you should do the kinyan, and we'll get back to that in a moment. So Belsky held it's potter. I can't say I fully understand. Someone explained to me, what does he mean that the metal is on the inner recesses of the machine? What does he mean? Does anyone understand that svara? So what? So in the world, someone wanted to tighten up.
The shame that the guy owned was
all your labeling is plastic anyway, you know?
So what? It gets heated from a metal component. So I wanted to tighten in the world of an absolute guy said this to me. Ray Brunner from Frackway. He told me, you have to learn Hilchas Keilim. If you learn Mishnayos Keilim, you'll understand, and you won't have a shayla, and it's pasha. You don't have to table a machine. So the world of Tumah V'Tayra, it's not a kli, and vayter in life. Now, first of all, it's not so pasha as we've seen many times. You don't necessarily go with Tumah V'Tayra, but he was saying because it's balua. He was saying there's a svara that it's balua, like you saw that the uber b'mei imai. Is that called Taivel? Does it need Tefillah? V'chulu. That was as far he was going to say. Maybe that's what Rabbi Belsky meant. L'maiser Rabbi Heinemann from Baltimore writes that you can't Taivel it, you don't have to Taivel it. And this is something that always bothered me, because what about Rabbi Kiva? What about Chachos Adam? They're saying something like, quote unquote, can't be Taivel. They don't say just don't be Taivel it. They say rebuild it. So Rabbi Kleiman, which you all heard the beautiful shir, said that Rav Shmuel responded, it's potter from tefillah. And it's about Keurig, Nespresso, all coffee machines that won't survive tefillah. Now, whether something will survive tefillah or not, I don't know how to answer that question. I do know Rabbi Forrest from the art school book, one of his right-hand men told me, and if you look in his book, he says all these things need tefillah. He does not believe they break. What do you mean? What is it? It's a belief? What's an emunah? Go try it. So he did, and one of his henchmen told me that what he does is he rolls up his sleeves, he takes the cord, he wraps the cord around his arm, machmer like Ramesh Sternbach, that the cord should be plugged, the tivelt, and then he takes the whole machine, and he goes in on an angle. I'm telling you exactly what he does. Goes in on an angle quickly, whole arm in, whole arm out. Then he sits there and he flips the machine up around to get all the water out. Sits on the side for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, that's the din from the Rebbe, is 2 weeks, 14 days. He's never had a problem. He has toiveled many machines. Okay. I'll now put my little addendum that Lamaisa, I recently tried to be Makabel Divrei Marenu, and I didn't wait 2 weeks. I didn't know 14 days was Xeris HaKosov. I waited like 10 days, 11 days, I don't remember exactly how long. And I looked and I didn't see a dot of water anywhere. And I plugged in the machine and the light lit up. It's like Valdik, they had water light. I listened, I added water. I closed it, that water light disappeared, and Zahu. And the light lit up on top to make the coffee. And I pressed, and I pressed, and I pressed, nothing. So, I don't know. What I'm trying to bring out is, will it break or not is a hard thing. You ask them, they tell you, of course it breaks. You ask Rabbi Forrest, he says he did it. I don't know. I don't know. I do believe it might be telling the screen. Again, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it as I don't know. But if one says, I just spent $200 on my machine, I'm not interested in a breaking. Like, I think it might break. So the answer is, Rav Heinemann and Rabbi Belsky at its potter. I said I never understood it. So the Maisa, Shmuel Kamenetsky, his Talmud, or Rav Tevilas Keilim, says over that he came from where? Sif Yudaf. And what do we see in Sif Yudaf? Oh, actually, I have from Rabbi Forrest right here. Rabbi Forrest right over here says, coffee machine electric, tefillah with a bracha. With a bracha, straight up. Rabbi Forrest comes from, no, first. Rav Shmuel said Sif Yud Aleph, and Rav Shmuel Arbach was told the Raya, and apparently he said the Tata or some Zalman would be maskim. And the Raya is that we see in Sif Yud Aleph that you have an impossibility to taivel an item. Why? Because you own it b'shutfis, and therefore you can't be taivel it. And therefore we learned to Sif Yud Aleph, you're allowed to use it. Now this gets into a fundamental shayla, which I'm not going to give the shir klali right now. And the reason is, of course, Rav Tevilas Keilim gave the shir klali, and it's a Meir take a shir klali, and just listen to him. Why should I just parrot his words? With all the rayas in Kol Kula that we find that you'll have a mitzvah, but when you can't fulfill a mitzvah, you're allowed to do something. You're allowed to do something. I'll just give one of his rayas is Kiddush. Kiddush, you have to make Kiddush. What if you don't have wine? When you have wine, use challah. Only on Friday night, by the way. You can't use challah Shabbos day, travesty. But let's say you have no wine, what do? So there's an amount of time you have to be able to get wine. You can't get wine with that amount of time. L'mais, you're allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat before Kiddush. If you don't have wine, you don't have wine. So there are numerous rayas that you want to call it an aynis. When you say the words aynis, in my feeble brain, it like cheapens the whole thing. Because when you hear aynis, you say just don't do it. Don't put yourself into the aynis. Who told you to bought it? But when you see, which is still a little bit of a shayla, let's be honest. I still have that shayla a little bit. Even when you have the raya from Sif Yud Aleph, who says you're allowed to put yourself into that matziv. Now, in Sif Yud Aleph, nowhere does it say not. Nowhere does it say not. I think everyone would be maskim. There's a maila to not. I don't think anyone would say, no, there's no Maila. And of course there's no Maila. And, but that is his heter. Okay, we'll try again. Lamaisa, that is Rav Shmuel's Meir Tika Heter. He says Rav Zalman is maskim, and the truth is, it's a little bit funny. Once Ray Belsky was quoted as saying that it's a patur from Tefillah, that's sort of, as they say, it went viral, because any layman now that wants to know what do you do with your coffee machine, they just type, do you have to type your coffee machine? They come to the OU document. OU is a reputable site. It certainly is. And they say no. And that's the way. In Lamaisa, many are makel like that. And now we understand there are other svaras which we're not going to get involved in right now. There are svaras that it could be that if the electricity is only a motor to make it work, it's just heating up water. Could be there's other svaras we're not getting involved in right now. That is the Kureg, that is electricity. Do you have any questions before we move on to items? Speaking now for our LDPs. Once, twice, thrice. Oh, I just should add on that, of course, what's the way to avoid the Shiloh? Don't buy it. Or sell it to a guy. Why come to you? Oh, we'll get to it in a minute. Sell it to a guy. So Ray Belsky writes, again, I just wanted to conclude with this. What? What's that? I'm going to read what he says. Well, one second. If you sell a portion to a non-Jew, this would alleviate any question of tefillah, because even a clear his own b'shutfis with a non-Jew is exempt from tefillah. The proper way to accomplish such a sale would be to accept some money as payment, kinyan kesef, have the non-Jew pick up the kureg to show that he's taking partial ownership, kinyan hagbah. Likewise, and then he says it often has a coffee machine with a contract with kureg, then they own it, you don't own it. And that's the way to do it. Is you go to the cleaning lady, you go to the help, you say to them, I'd like you to own. He says partial ownership, by the way, which might make the Taz's kasha that the nishtaka shem agai, that you don't see the shem agai here, might make it better. Might make it better, right? The Taz discusses what do you do if you can't if you have an item on Shabbos. So it's already brought down in the Mechaber, the Ramah, and the Shabbat Shulchan Gimel. What you do is you give it to a guy. Problem is, are you allowed to do that? The Taz says no, because you nishtaka shem agai, it's your item. So it could be if you do it with shutfis, it makes it a little bit better, because it's always a shem yid on it. Always shem yid on it. He had them give you $1, you tell him to pick it up, tell him you're doing there's no to what means, tell him a Jewish law acquisition, you tell him he owns part of your machine, and you know you can do it, you can make it real. Tell the kid, you know what, you ownership, that's you can use the machine whenever you want. Give the machine without, with my take this. That's just item. Now, whether you should generally let your help drink water, have a cup of coffee is a different story, we're going to let them distract them, so when it comes to appliances, you definitely want to keep them away. Why is there no distracting on coffee? Is there distracting on coffee? What? No? 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 What up, Pierre? What up, Pierre? Who makes Heineken? You give it in the factory? No, how do you drink it? It's cooked. Okay. That was another expensive? No, I got it. So. So, you don't need raw coffee beans? Okay, so no one here is allowed to have their cleaning lady make them a coffee, or buy a coffee at Starbucks, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, or anywhere, until you know why not? Why not? No. But to answer your question, the beans, if you're going to tell me that they're made by Guardian, but they are. They're originally made by Guardian. Should be a test if you're saying. So sit and check them out. I didn't know if that's English. Let's continue. If I get myself into trouble. Okay. So why did I have coffee? No? Why did I have coffee? Okay. So we have to, no one is here that I have a coffee till you know that. Not official? What does that mean? No, that it was official. Make it worse, not better. Make it worse. That it was made in Taster's Choice. No. No, he's saying it's not official now. That it was official, and now it's made by Bain. That's not official. That's why you're not eating Pringles. If you get it, by the way, Chavra, you chose milk over Pringles, I'm telling you now. That was your choice. You made a choice, you chose Pringles, you're going to have to make a decision. Let's move on. Good. Listen. Good. Are we good coffee machines? Any other questions? Since you do, you have to go and make a kinyan. Some want a taina what you could do is you write a name on the back. Shanika. Whatever the name is. You write a name, maybe that's not the Shtaka Shem. I don't know what that is. If the cone says what do you do? Mafka it. Mafka the machine. She's a kasha and you finish that and she does killing, you have to ask yourself, does that work? Good. So that's the Taz. But when the Taz doesn't say that it's that, what does the Taz say? When the Taz says Yishtaka Shem Yed, Shem Avei, he doesn't say you have to table it. You ask him it works. He just says you shouldn't do it. You know that's what the Taz says so? Then the Taz discusses, you know what Taz talking about? You have to table it again. So now, what means the chumah? No, not means the Taz is being mechadesh to table it.